I would have liked to speak a few lines in Hindi, but my dear friend, Professor Anil Kumar has cautioned me in the morning, "आप हिंदी मत बोलिए." तो बोलना कैसे होगा? Because he brought me here. So I can't take the risk of speaking a little bit of Hindi, and I said, "Suchandra di, please, jaiye." So that's the thing. But really, from the bottom of my heart, I'm very pleased to be here. My association with Professor Anil Kumar, as he said, now I should call him Professor Anil Kumar, but he is my dear Anil, like my young brother, and it has been like more than 20 years. I have known him when he used to come to Indian History Congress with his mentor, the prodigal son of Bihar, Professor Vijay Thakur. So our association goes a long way. And my colleague today, with whom I am presenting this presentation, is another brother of mine, Dr. Rajat Sanyal, without whom I couldn't have done this. Now, if we look at this title of the presentation, it looks very ambitious, because here we are talking about gleanings from inscribed images of Magadha. Obviously, we can't do that in 30 or 25 minutes. So what we have planned is that this is actually a future project. We have many such projects. We don't know, Rajat and me, that we want to do so many things. And I would like to thank Mr. Mithilesh Mishra for yesterday Rajat called me and he said that Didi won't believe, right from the morning, he's still there till 9:30, 10. So this administrative endeavor, without this, one cannot have such a big thing, such a big conclave. And thank you so much, sir, for inviting us here. And I really apologize that I couldn't be there yesterday for the inaugural, which was also but I heard Professor Claudine speaking and some others. Anyway, we don't have much time. So this is an unplanned project which we want to do. We want to have an idea of the different monastic seals and also the inscriptions that have come out or been unearthed, and then prepare a large database and understand the social basis or the social world of the donors in early India, particularly in Bihar. Now, we all know that donors of images underscore the presence of several social and economic groups. Actually, those who are aware of genres of epigraphic studies in India, they know that donative records form a very important cluster of a very important genre of inscriptions. And among the donative records, we have the early donative records and, of course, the early medieval ones. And what is very striking is that the early donative records, like in the caves of Bhaja, Karle, Kanheri, Sanchi and all, these kind of donative records we don't find in Bengal and Bihar. And that is an enigma. We do not know why in the 2nd or the 3rd century we do not have such records. But as we move into the early medieval period, we see a plethora of donative records, particularly images, mostly Buddhist, but many Brahmanical too, in this whole world. So today we have decided that we will focus on Lakhisarai, because Lakhisarai itself gives us a lot of sources for understanding the social basis. And we know that we have, for donors, we have royalty, nobility, religious figures like monks, nuns, merchants, and various occupational groups. Our focus today will be on the occupational groups. Inscriptions thus reveal the broad cross-section of the population. Donations were a way to display their piety and their association with religious institutions and practices. There were lots of merchants. We have persons like social groups like Kayasthas, Kayasthini. So we have divided this entire, between us, the presentation. Rajat will give you an idea of the nature of donors and an overview in the first place. And then I will talk about a few. So what we have decided is that we will talk about actually basically 3 or 4 donors which are very unique to Lakhisarai, which we do not find in any other places. So one is Shundika, the other is Madhusranika, third is Kanduka, and of course we have the Danapatis, and their names are emblematic of their occupation. So I would like to request Rajat, you please come here and speak a little bit, and then we can go to the next section.
Thank you.
No, I can wait.
Thank you.
Not too old. I have become a senior citizen, but can stand.
Thank you, Didi. Thank you so much. So, as Suchandra said, we will be focusing. Why did we finally confine to Lakhisarai? Because initially we thought of making a comparative details of these 4 centers, Nalanda, Kurkehar, Bodhgaya and Lakhisarai, but then we found it too difficult to complete in 30 minutes, so we decided to confine ourselves to Lakhisarai. And the second reason behind it is, as you will see, Lakhisarai has the largest number of, if you remember my earlier talk, as the largest number of dated images of the early medieval period, and the categories that she talked about, the 3 occupational groups and the generic Varnika, the traders, we have the largest number of inscriptions of those categories again from Lakhisarai. So I'll just give you an overview, then the interpretative part based on these 3 or 4 specific categories that will be taken up by Suchandra again. So coming to the, very briefly I'll give you an overview of the whole thing. This one, most of these are dated sculptures, only one I have used here which is undated, and I did not use that same one that I talked about yesterday, the Shakya Sthavira, because it's in your memory now, I hope, as I talked about it yesterday, so I didn't include that here. That is also an undated one. This is dated to the reign of Shurapal, and it talks about a Krimila Vastava Varnika. This person is a resident of Krimila. His son donated the image, but his occupation is, in generic terms, it is called, he is a Varnika or trader. Then we come to another image which is famous, which was found from Navalagad in neighboring Begusarai district officially, but very much within the cultural orbit of Krimila, because the inscription says it's in Krimila, of the date of Vigrapal III. It talks about a Krimilaya Shaundika, which has to be amended as Krimilayang Shaundika of Krimila. Shaundika is a vintner. Vintner, his wife, please note that he is not the donor, the dedicator is his wife, and the person is a vintner, Shaundika. Then the third category is interesting. This person is called Madhushranika, and again here this person is said to have dedicated the image. We didn't see the image ever, because when D.C. Sarkar first published it, he also only found the pedestal of it, and now even the pedestal is gone. We have no idea of its present whereabouts. It was found from the residence of one person, K.C. Mishra, if I remember, Keshav Mishra in Balgudar village. From his house, D.C. Sarkar had recorded this. It talks about he said an image of Madhushranika which was installed at Krimila Adhishthan. I'm sure most of you are aware of Professor Anil Kumar's article on Krimila Adhishthan. This Adhishthan is recorded for the first time in inscription in this record of, now I would date it to mid-8th century or late 8th century, in the reign of the first Pala king Dharmapala. And then Professor Gaurishwar Bhattacharya amended D.C. Sarkar's reading, and he said, no, Madhushranika is not a god. Madhushranika is actually the person who installed this deity, who installed the image, who dedicated the image maybe to a local temple. That person is a Madhushranika. He translated it as a trader in honey, but it has more to it. Professor Ghosh will elaborate on that. Then we have the regular term occurring in inscriptions of Magadha, as we have in this image from Lakhisarai. This was from Kiul. This is now in Calcutta University's Ashutosh Museum image. It's Ashutosh Museum of Indian Art, a small image, which was sometimes, way back in the 1970s, it was suggested to be a dated image, because here the name of a person called Gopala is recorded. But this Gopal, let me tell you, has nothing to do with any Pala ruler. This was again a donation by a lady, a woman, whose husband's name was Gopal, and he was a Dhanapati. Again, the specific issue about Dhanapati will be discussed later. So again we have one image from the time of Madan Pal from Nongad, where we have not only the name of Dhanapati and his wife, again note this is a donation by a lady, but also here we have, I'll come to one more example, here we have a specific calendrical date. Among the dated inscriptions of the Pala period, we are always used to having the dates as regnal years of the kings. In this part of the country, this practice of recording dates with Shaka-abda, Vikrama-abda, this practice came much later in the 15th, 16th century. In 9th to 12th century range, we don't have dates recorded in this manner. We have only 3 or 4 examples, 3 examples precisely, between 8th and 12th. 2 of them come from Lakhisarai again. One is this one, which is talking about Sambat 1201, which is in Vikramabda, and then I'll come to another one. Here again, this is a record, this is a Shivalinga of bronze which is preserved in Linden Museum, dated in Devapala's reign. This was read by Gaurishwar Bhattacharya again, but he somehow didn't read the word Krimila. Now we see that it records the name again of a Krimila Vastavya, but without any specific detail of who this person is. He is said to have Krita. Krita is, he has consecrated, he has donated, he has dedicated the image. Now coming to the other categories. This is one inscription which is from Rajauna. We recorded it in 2017. It was there last year also. I somehow forgot to take the measurement of this image, and today I went to the village. This is the image he was just talking about, Professor Kumar. Now it's not there in the village. Gayab hai gaon se. This talks about a Paramopasaka. Paramopasaka means a lay worshipper who is Buddhist by religion. He is a devout Buddhist, but a lay worshipper. I just added this slide sitting over there because only few days back I received this image from Professor Janis Lioshko, which is now, this image is in a museum in England, where we have the name of a Paramopasika also, whose husband's name is not here. This record directly refers to the lady as Paramopasika. She is again a devout Buddhist, but she is a lay worshipper, not a monastic lady, unlike the lady that we talked about yesterday, who was a monastic, essentially monastic. And she was the chief nun, if you remember. And then we have this Mundeshwari image from Rajaona, which was never published. Nobody, to my knowledge, has seen this image because its reading was only published in 1971, 1973, 74, published actually in 1975 by P. Priyatosh Banerjee. It was possibly, considering the length of the inscription, if you see 10 lines on an image, it is possible only on the back side of the image. So possibly this was engraved on the back side of an image, but now we have no evidence of this. Its whereabouts are not known. We have no idea where it is. Professor Claudine Baudze-Picro has a hunch that one image recorded by Beglar at Rajauna, yes, might be, yes, she showed that photograph also yesterday, if you remember. She has a hunch that possibly this is the image that is this Pundeshwari, because the lady is Pundeshwari, but the problem is these 10 lines are very difficult to be engraved on the pedestal. You don't have space simply. And he specifically says, P. Banerjee, that it's in 10 lines. So this is a problem of the thing, but the point is, this again talks about Krimila. This again talks about, Krimila, and it takes the name of the lady who is being dedicated. She is called Pundeshwari Bhattarika. The deity is named here. The other one, the famous Jayanagar inscription, which is in Victoria Albert Museum. Here also we have the name of the deity called Punneshwari or Purneshwari. The same deity, images are also almost identical, is donated by one individual, and this also comes from Jayanagar. So, as Professor Baudzapikro also said yesterday, that 70 to 80% of the images in this area are Buddhist, but also we have no dearth of Brahmanical images. This is one dated, and it is not only dated Brahmanical image, it has significance of, it has manifold significance. Number one is, this talks about Krimila, Krimila resident Brahmana, a Brahmana residing in Krimila. Then it talks about the deity who is Narayana, who is dedicated, and then it has a date which is called Shakanripate, and then 1083, so it's a Shaka year. So this inscription is of, if I'm allowed to use the phrase, paramount significance, because within one small two-line inscription, we have a large number of important information. Then we have oh yes, this is the general pattern. Yes, I should have talked about this. In all the inscriptions that I showed even before that, everywhere you have Sambat. Sambat is the regnal year, the ruling year of the king. This is the pattern in Bihar, Bengal.
Starts with the Sambat.
Sambat and then the digit. But calendrical year is hardly recorded. From Lakhisarai only we have 2 records which have calendrical dates. And then we also have very simple records, just to show as an example. Here we have the name of Ramapala Deva. We have now 4 inscriptions of Ramapal from Lakhisarai. So here we have Rampal's name and the name of the dedicator, but nothing else in the first instance. For the second case, if you take a careful look, it records Maharaja Dhiraja Sri Ramapala Deva Vijaya Rajye Samvat 14. It only records the name of the ruling year of the king and nothing else. So we have a wide range of the text also, starting from a long 10-line text talking about things which are very difficult to even understand. The Samasta Mahatrikada, Krimilayaha Samastra Mahatrikada, we have no idea of what it means by Samasta Mahatrikada. There is no explanation from any epigraphist so far. These long texts are here, and also in inscriptions of Krimila, Lakhisarai, we have these short texts where you have only simply the date. The next one, I'll not go to that. I'll come to that later when she talks about Kanduka. So, if we now summarize these slides, we have largest number of dated inscriptions. We have predominantly dedications from women. We have dedications from monastics, if you remember yesterday's case. We have instance of lay worshippers. We have largest number of dated sculptures. We have the 2 unique cases of calendrical years. So for all reasons, if we look at the dedicatory records of Eastern India in general, Lakhisarai has a special case. But we have one more special thing to discuss, but in course of the Professor Suchandra Ghosha's delineations on the details of the category.
Very brief. Yes. Now, after my brief introduction and Rajat's very wonderful narrative of those inscriptions, which forms the background of the social basis which we are talking about, we see that first of all he talked about the Danapatis. Now we know that when we have these inscriptions of Danapatis, they could be categorized as elite donors. So within the donors also we can have some categorization. So it could be the Danapatis, where we have a very interesting essay by Gorishar Bhattacharya, who he talks about a unique Danapati. And so Danapatis were obviously persons who had enough wealth, and that's why we find the wives of Danapatis also donating. And of course, they can be categorized as some elite donors. But one, we has to also remember that these donors were not, there were other donors who were not from very so-called elite class of the society, but they were also, like when I'm talking only of Lakhisarai, they are not also from the lower level of the subaltern classes, if I may use the word subaltern within quotes. Now, why I say so? Because if we look at inscriptions from, say, nearby Kurkihar or others, we have people donating like the cobbler. So we do not have such kind of category of donors in case of Lakhisarai. So, and he has already given us. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, that we will particularly talk about three categories. One is the Shundika, the other is the Madhusrenika, and the third is the Kanduka, which will come to later. So both Madhusrenika and Shundika are related to activities associated with wine. Now, if we think of wine distillation, wine selling and others, we have to remember that in the ancient Indian context, we have a very long lineage of wine production, things associated with wine in the Indian context. So we had wine distillers, and they were known as different names. Now, if we go to the textual sources, the term Shundin for a wine distiller is mentioned in a legal context within the Manusmriti, verse 8. And the text states that a debt contracted by the wife of a wine distiller, and there are other professions like herdsman, public dancer, washer, or hunter, shall be discharged by her husband. So other sources also note that the ancient Indian grammarian Panini and also Patanjali in his Mahabhashya described the distilling apparatus and used the term Shundin for a distiller. One may note that in Bengal, we have this term, the present term Shuri is also related to the drinking of wine. And in Bihar, in Eastern India too. I think generally in Bengal and Bihar, we have this term. Now, I was talking about the occupational, this kind of donative records in early historic India, which we don't have here. But in those donative records too, if we take out the case of Mathura, we have that donation in this context of the Kalyavala or Kalyapala. D.C. Sarkar also opines that the Kalyapala or Kalyapala could be similar to the wine distiller. Now, one inscription from Kankadalitela in Mathura refers to the wife of a Kalavala as a donor of an Ayagapata. He could be a rich wine merchant, enabling his wife to make generous donations. A female figure was also found at Mora near Mathura and is undated, but the inscription states that the donor was the wife of the Kalapala of Mathura. So this is quite plausible, as a wine distiller could have amassed wealth in the urban center of Mathura. And I ask you to remember this, take note of this word urban, where the culture of wine consumption was quite prevalent. So similarly, this can be said to be the case of Krimila, where we find, if I give one example, we find Ashoka, daughter of a vintner, which Rajat also mentioned, of Krimila, offering an image of Vasudhara. So now this Krimila Adhishthana, this term, as Anil had already discussed this, we know that it has an urban context. Now, due to their association with alcohol, which is considered ritually impure, these people, these distillers, these Shundins or this thing, they were of lower social category if we go by the categories that we find in the Dharma Shastra texts. However, we have to remember that the ritual status is not the same with the actual status. And this I want to, because there are many students here, and I want to reiterate that when we look at the Varna Jati structure of early India, we always have to be very careful that what is given in the normative texts, what is given in the Dharma Shastras, that is not the final word. That is a prescriptive norm. What we find in inscription, which is etched in stones, this is actually the actual status comes from that. So if we look at the Shundin, who had a very, a kind of a low status in the Varna Jati, if we look at the Varna Jati's label, then we find they had quite a good social status because they had wealth and they could be able to donate in such cases. So, and if I may mention also here that we have from different copper plates of contemporary or nearby period from Orissa, particularly coastal Orissa. We have the Bhaumakara dynasty, where in the copper plates also we find a category of people who are living in the villages. So one was, a regular mention is found of the Shondikas or Shundikas. So they were an important category living in the villages, but perhaps in the margin of the villages, because they were preparing wine and they were moving into the town for the consumption, because for selling this. So there was the kind of consumption culture was there. Now let me move into the other group of donor, who is the Madhusrenika. Now the term Madhusrenika needs a little bit of more scrutiny, as it was mentioned that it was studied by D.C. Sharkar and also by Gaureshwar Bhattacharya. There was a short note by Ranjushree Ghosh in the Asiatic Society, if my memory goes right, in the Bulletin of the Asiatic Society. But this has generally been taken as Madhusrenika, that it is the honey. Madhu is taken as honey. But we have to remember that should not be, it should, we can also, honey, madhu is a literal meaning, but we can also think of that is associated with a kind of drink which causes intoxication. And we have, again, if I'm going back, I'm moving back and forth to early historic for referring. If we look at the sculptures of Sanghol, in Sanghol we have sculptures like a lady having a wine drinking scene, and it is labeled by the historian as Madhupana. So Madhu is a kind of a drink, could be a kind of a drink which gives us intoxication. And then with this, the addition of the word Srenika, it's very important. Srenika is like, indicates its commercial character, and we are tempted to indicate that there was a guild-like organization among the people who were dealing with the selling of wine. So Sreni is a mercantile organization. We have this organization. So if the term Srenika is attached to Madhu, which means that there was a network of this kind of people. Thus, in this Adhisthana of Krimila, we have a burgeoning winemaking and wine selling group. And I want to distinguish between Shundika and Madhusrenika. So one is a wine distiller and one is a wine seller who is involved in the wine selling area. And who could actually be responsible for uplifting the economic profile of the area. The two professions are distinct in their own way, but similar in the sense that they were part of the culture of wine drinking. We cannot forget that this was an urban space. Drinking is largely associated to an urban context. Think of the life of a Nagaraka as described by Vasyana in the 3rd, 4th century, which suggests that drinking was a part and parcel of an urban space. Now, if we specifically notice the geography of the present Lakhisarai, we learn that Mahua, Madhuka indica or Madhuka longifolia plant is found near Lakhisarai, Bihar. It's all around here. It is, when I just Googled it and I found that it is very much present, and it is specifically mentioned that Mahua trees are widely present in the hilly regions and forests of the Lakhisarai district. We all know that its flowers provide a source of income and sustenance for rural and communities who use them for food, cattle feed, and brewing a traditional liquor. We can easily imagine that Mahua plant was present in the region during the early medieval period, and this was the main ingredient. So the social and geographical association with the culture of drinking cannot be lost sight of. Finally, from the beverages, we may shift our gaze to sweets, and for which Bihar is famous. And here we encounter a donation by a confectioner, that is the Kanduka. In a forthcoming essay by Rajat Sanyal and Anil Kumar, they are discussing this particular inscription and the image of Kanduka, who is a confectioner preparing sweet, and the image actually depicts a sweet which is in present day called Peraki, Chandrakala, Gujia. In Hyderabad, this is very famous. Rajat? We call Perakia. In Bengal also we call Paraki. Yes. It is also round sometimes. Yeah, you have Paraki. But in Hyderabad, when I go to the shops, they call it Gujia. But the same thing, the Chandrakala. So this kind of sweet is very...
This museum, this image.
So Rajat will talk a little more about this, but just to wind up, let me say, and what is interesting is that Kandu is known as a, because I'm relating also to the caste, because the Varna Jati thing. So Kandu is the Kanha, and thanks to Anil and Rajat. So we know that is known as a Kanu Jati subcaste in Lakhisarai and other parts of South Bihar. The associated details, now Rajat will explain to you, which also leads us to believe that there was this whole workshop of the Kandukas who were doing it. So Rajat, before I conclude, you can just go into these details.
If you remember, I had shown an image of this sculpture last year also, but I didn't have answer to many questions. Now we have, particularly this problem, what this person is holding. Initially we thought he is Jambhala because his formula in which he is shaped is Jambhala. Then we thought he is possibly holding the personifications of Jalani Prabha and Chandra Prabha. Maybe he is personifying Avalokiteshwara in a philosophical way. But then when this came to our mind, we realized that, and the inscription says he is a confectioner, he is a mithai maker. Since the dedicator is a mithai wala, he wanted his God to hold his own product in hand. That's how he wanted to visualize, conceive his deity, yet figuring the thing in the format of Jambhala, because the Jambhala is the god of wealth and he is a Baniya. So he needs, at the end of the day, what he is looking for is wealth. So he is making it in the model of Jambhala and making him hold his own daily products. And the image is about 29 centimeter in height. So it was, maybe it was in worship in his workshop or his household deity. This was found from Rahogar, and the best news for the people of Lakhisarai is this image is preserved in this museum. So anyone can go to the second floor and take a look at the image. This is an essentially local element. We have several references to different such categories, as Suchandra just detailed, Shaundikas, Madhushredikas, Padamulikas, Tailikas, but Kanduka was something we never had. This is for the first time, for which we have also ready ethnographic evidence from the modern confectioner's world. So this was I was to
we
say.
would like to thank Sharmila, Dr.
Yes,
Sharmila Shaha, because she identified
these
things, which is actually a roller pin and which is required for making the sweet. So
This
the
is a
roller
knife.
pin, the knife,
And the
so
cast.
so that is a big thank goes to her also. Now I know we are running out of time, so I won't go to any more details of any other things. This was a brief overview taking into consideration just do these three particular groups of donors. And
no, that's not talking about, that's actually a temple foundation inscription.
Oh.
And that is not
We are
talking about,
into
that also talks about a Bonica, but that is, we
image,
have confined to images.
image inscriptions. We will do that in the larger, as I mentioned in the
Yes,
beginning,
yes.
we have this huge ambitious project, when I don't know. So what we find from these case studies, which reflect the donative sphere associated with the site, settlement, whatever we can call it, of Krimila, when studied judicially, they can provide insights into the social and religious life of Krimila Adhisthana and the kind of network this area of Krimila had in the early medieval period. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much.
Before dispersing for tea break, I would like to call Professor Sangama Natunda.